Hey Internet, I'm Chris, and this is a place on the internet where I talk about comics, movies, games, and things I'm generally passionate about. Something that I've been loving lately, and if you watch the channel, you know this, I've been loving the Absolute Universe. Absolute Batman #1 by Scott Snyder and Nick Dragotta was absolutely amazing. It lived up to the hype, and I think it's one of the best Batman comics, single issues of the last few years. Then you had Absolute Wonder Woman by Kelly Thompson and Hayden Sherman, which I also thought was great. Wasn't quite up to the level of Absolute Batman, but that's a high bar to set. Still a great Wonder Woman comic and something I'm excited to dive deeper into. And then next week we have Absolute Superman, which is by Jason Aaron and Soundvadal, I think, or Raphael Soundvadal. And that book, because it's sort of, I don't know, like Superman, like I've kind of like been stretched thin when it comes to alternate takes on Superman. But based on the reaction to Absolute Superman, I think a lot of people are, I might be surprised. So I'm hoping for that. I hope that's good. But the Absolute universe is expanding. And one of the books I'm really excited for is Absolute Green Lantern, written by Al Ewing. Al Ewing, I think, is one of the best modern comic book writers, especially when it comes to sort of the horror aspect of things. I think his Immortal Hulk was one of the great comic runs of the last 10 years. And when you think about Immortal Hulk and sort of the things he's been saying about Absolute Green Lantern, I think those horrific elements that we saw in that, and there's an opportunity to sort of reinvent the Green Lantern mythos when it comes to the Absolute Universe. So Al Ewing did an interview with the Comic Pals, one of my favorite comic YouTube channels. If you're not subscribed to them, subscribe, hit up their Patreon, hit up their Discord. They're amazing. Some of the best people you can meet in the comic community, and think they have great discussions and also great interviews. They had an interview with Al Ewing, and he was pretty open about what he can say in terms of what's to come with Absolute Green Lantern. We know Joe Mullen, based on some of the early artwork that we've seen, is the main character of this. But Al's talked about the fact that Hal Jordan will also play a key role. John Stewart, who was originally in Al Ewing's mind the protagonist of this story, is also going to play a major role. And you're going to see Guy Gardner and Scott has a role to play. So you're getting the Green Lantern Corps without the Green Lantern Corps. And what I mean by that, Al talked about the fact that there's actually no Green Lantern Corps in here. There's no space cops. There's no rings, as I wear my Black Lantern ring. The Green Lantern's literally a giant symbol that just drops on a town, just based on the earlier preview art we got. So it'll be interesting to see how they tackle the Green Lantern mythos and what Green Lantern means in this. In the interview with the Comic Pals, he talks about sort of in his work, he likes to ask big questions and work out things around religion and things he has big questions about. And if you've read his work, you could kind of see that. And I think Green Lantern is sort of the perfect platform to use, that space and sort of like what he's really good at. Immortal Hulk had such a great impact on me. Like when I got back into collecting comics or reading comics on a regular basis, that series was still ongoing, and I jumped in, I think, sort of mid-run, like 25 issues in and stuff, and I still was like engrossed in that world. I had to find early issues to catch up, and I think, when it's all said and done, much further down the road, people will constantly go back to Immortal Hulk, and I constantly recommending that book, especially to anyone that's like, hey, like, what should I read when it comes to the Hulk? And with Absolute Green Lantern, if he's sort of bringing that cosmic horror element to it, as he says in the interview, there's an opportunity for some reinvention, especially sort of ripping those elements of the core, the ring. Who knows if the Guardians and Oa will show up. And also, I think Joe Mullen has, obviously Far Sector is a really popular book. Ever since they landed in that story, they've been integrated into the main DC universe and still highlighted much more than Simon Baz. And it's going to be interesting to see her sort of have the spotlight and be the center of the Green Lantern universe. And Green Lanterns, it's hard, like I'm really liking Jeremy Adams' run. I loved Robert Venditti's Hal Jordan and the Green Lantern Corps. But Jeff Johns, when he wrote Green Lantern, it changed everything. To be quite frank, he really elevated that character and changed what that character means for the DC universe. If Jeff Johns doesn't write that Green Lantern run. We don't get a Green Lantern movie. We don't get a Green Lantern animated series. We also probably don't get a Lanterns HBO show, even though he's not involved in that. He really changed what that character is, really elevated that character, and obviously changed the lore. So I think it's really difficult to sort of play in that world because of sort of the expansive nature of that run. And also, like, any creative team these days won't have that time elite that leeway to create something as iconic as that run. And so to see what Al's doing with Absolute Green Lantern based on the preview art, based on this interview, it is exciting to sort of like be like, okay, what can be done? Like, just based on the previews and stuff like that, I'm definitely getting an Arrival feel if you've ever seen that movie. And you know, I've really been digging sort of like, I've been on a sci-fi kick lately, so to kind of see what they're doing with Absolute Green Lantern, and then you have Dennis Camp with Absolute Martian Manhunter. So you have an Absolute Green Lantern that has no Green Lantern rings, and then you have an Absolute Martian Manhunter book that actually the alien is not a Martian at all. So yeah, I mean, at first you're kind of like, oh, that's weird. That's kind of, but after sort of like having that weird reaction to Absolute Batman and seeing the initial art and being like, I don't know, and then reading the book and it being absolutely amazing, now I'm in the position of like, hey, like, the more weird and different you're gonna make this Absolute DC book, the more bought in I am. So you have someone like Al Ewing really sort of exploring things, and really sort of, this is their first time at DC in a big way. They have a Metamorpho book coming in, a part of All In. So I can't really say much more about it. I mean, even with the small details he shared in that interview, you can tell there's just this big story coming along. And, you know, when Scott Snyder talks about what he wanted to do with the Absolute Universe, is really take big swings when it comes to superhero work, just because honestly, everyone's been playing it safe lately. Despite sort of the movie sort of flailing and stuff like that, it seems like, especially books at the big two, has sort of been coasting and sort of making things closer to the movies and stuff like that. And there's value in that, so that, you know, if the movies are really popular, people can go to the comics and stuff. But what happens is that you dilute the medium, and you don't have the people that have been supporting the comics for a really long time don't have much to chew on. And with this Absolute Universe and All In, I think we're going to have a lot to eat, especially if you're a Green Lantern fan. So I have to find my Green Lantern ring. This is my Black Lantern ring. In between this, you have Jeremy Adams' run, which has been fantastic and fun, and something that definitely calls back to what Jeff was able to do. Also, Pete Tomasi with the Green Lantern Corps and Robert Venditti. I think those are runs that are really great and sort of live up to what Jeff was able to do. And Al sort of going in a completely different direction bodes really well for what the series can be, and hopefully it is his DC version of Immortal Hulk, where you completely redefine a mythos of a character, and it's something you can give someone and they could jump right into, and be different. You know, I think Immortal Hulk, what's great about it is that, again, it completely redefines what the Hulk is. You know, it's not really around anger, it's body horror. It's, you know, he, instead of being angry, he turns into the Hulk when he dies. It's insane. And it's like, if you sort of like pitch that, and it makes no sense, you're kind of like, the Hulk is supposed to be angry. But when you read the book, you have Joe Bennett's art, and sort of like how it was this body horror book, which I never saw the Hulk as. You know, it's kind of like a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde kind of thing. So it's much more like dramatic in my mind. So to kind of approach in that way was really interesting. So to see him approaching Green Lantern in a cosmic horror way, where you could kind of maybe have some sort of Event Horizon vibes with a bit of Arrival, sort of the big questions you ask and stuff like that, I think people are going to really dig it. And sort of also, like, despite the fact that it has no real general ties to what the Green Lantern is in the main universe of DC, you do have a lot of the supporting cast, and Al teased the fact that you will have those characters like Guy Gardner, Alan Scott, John Stewart, Hal Jordan, but you will also have characters appear in the book that aren't traditionally Green Lantern supporting characters, which should be exciting. And I think that's kind of the fun of doing, like the Ultimate line or the Absolute line. You get to shuffle around people supporting cast and play with things, and it's like, hey, there are no rules here. We're laying the groundwork. So yeah, Absolute Green Lantern, I'm incredibly excited for. Right now it's slated for March of 2025, which seems very far away, but like we're literally in November now. It's like Halloween. Like, it's crazy how fast 2024 is passing by, and then before you know it, it's March 2025, and the next wave of Absolute DC books are out, and I'm here on the internet talking about how much I love them. Are you excited for Absolute Green Lantern? Let me know. Like, comment, subscribe, and peace.